We're going to look at how the slot table looks like whenever you have like columns, text, and whenever you have state. So let's look at a very simple example of a column that has a text with a hello world. So internally, when you look at compose, what there is a class called composition, and during initial composition or whenever there's recomposition, there is a part where changes gets applied and the slot table gets written to, and you'll be able to like navigate this. You'll be able to view this in a trace. If you do instrumentation testing, you could look at different things that they compose does. One of them is apply changes, and internally it writes a list of changes to the slot table. And I could take the slot table and be able to like print out and debug the internal contents of it. There is an internal API for it. So this is for when you're working inside of Android X. And if I were to look at the slot table for that very simple example, it looks like this. There's a lot of things in the slot table. You can see there's a hierarchy of groups from the top to the bottom. There's a lot of nesting also. So when you look at the first group, it always has a key of 100 and a key of 1,000. So you'll see that this is the top group that gets always added. Whenever you have any type of compose code, you also see some slots in there. It's adding things in there. So the other thing you'll see is that in here, you'll see there's a content, which is the root of the layout. That also gets added to the slot table as a group. And it has certain things in its slots. And it has a specific key that gets assigned to it, which is this. So suppose now what I want to look at is next thing is the actual column itself. You'll see it right there, group 25. And this column, when you look at its slots, it has a column measure policy. So when you look at how a column is internally created, it has a constructor where it's setting this information like a column measure policy, and it's also setting up some composition locale provider. And so this is a type of a layout node, as you could see. So each type in Compose UI, like a row, column, or a box, emits a layout node, and it gets stored like this in the slot table. So this is the slot table. Next thing we need to look at is what is a text, the text that gets added. So this is what the text is, and let's zoom in there. So the text, what you'll see is that it has a specific value to it. And this is storing the hello world. And this also gets added as a group in the layout in the slot table. And what you'll see is that this is what it represents. And you'll see that there are further like groups on below this, which have much more concrete implementation of text, like a basic text, for example. So let's imagine if I'm using some type of a state like hello world. How does that get stored? What changes happen in the slot table whenever you have this type of code where you have some type of a state? So if I go back and look at the slot table to the text and zoom into it, you'll see that now it's storing basically the actual state value in its slots right there. You'll see right there, hello world in that slot right there. So 79 is kind of the index of the value. So it starts at 79. The hello world is at 78. And that's how it stores that state in the slot table. But suppose I have multiple composable functions reading from that same state value. Suppose I had another text. How is that stored in the slot table? So I were to print out the slot table and look internally in there, you'll see in there that there are two texts in there right there. And let's zoom into those. You'll see that there are two groups that get added, and both of them are utilizing the same like hello world. You can see there in their slots in both of them. So that's one right there, and that's another right there. So these are just examples of how the slot table looks like for like using columns, rows, and text compose UI elements. And I'm exploring the slot table in the context of Compose UI. And what I shared with you are internal APIs that are internal that you could explore in Android X and to explore how slot table works. And this is how it looks like underneath the hood. And thank you for that.